In the year 2143, Earth had changed. The skies were no longer just blue and silent. They were full of lights, satellites, and whispering machines that listened to the universe. Humans had been searching for signs of life beyond their planet for more than 200 years. They had sent probes, signals, and hope into the darkness, but nothing ever answered. People had started to believe that they were alone, that the stars were just empty dots with no one looking back. Then one night, everything changed. In a quiet space observatory on the edge of the lunar colony, a young technician named Amina Patel was monitoring long-range communication bands. Her job was boring. She had to check signal patterns for distortions and make sure the listening arrays were working. But around midnight, she noticed something strange on her screen. A pattern appeared that wasn't random noise. It repeated itself, paused, and then repeated again exactly the same way. She frowned, thinking it was an error, but the signal grew stronger. It had rhythm. It had purpose. She ran an analysis and saw something that made her heart race. The transmission wasn't human. She called her supervisor, and within minutes, alarms began to echo through the observatory. Data packets were rushing in from every satellite in range. The message wasn't just a blip. It was a structured code. It had mathematics, frequencies, and a strange emotional tone embedded within it, something that felt almost like a voice crying out. The system's AI described it as a structured distress signal with harmonic empathy markers. Word spread fast. Within an hour, the United Earth Space Command was alerted. Governments across the world woke their science advisors in the middle of the night. Every media network broke into their broadcasts, and soon billions of people were watching the same thing. A thin line of symbols dancing across a screen. The first translations were confusing. Scientists thought it was some kind of warning. But after several hours of analysis, a linguist from the Mars University cracked the basic structure. It was not a warning, it was a plea. The message repeated one line again and again in a pattern that could be translated as, "We are dying. Please help us. You are our only hope." People didn't know what to think. Some were terrified. Others were fascinated. Across every continent, social media exploded with debates. Was this real? Was it a trick? Or was this the moment humanity had been waiting for? The first true contact with another intelligent life. The signal came from a distant star system named Epsilon Argentys, about 70 light-years away. The data suggested it had at least 2 planets, and one of them, based on ancient telescope readings, might have been habitable. But that was long ago. Now it seemed something terrible was happening there. The next day, the United Earth Council held an emergency session. For the first time in decades, all major world leaders appeared on a single live broadcast. The council's spokesperson, a calm woman named Dr. Helena Rios, announced the discovery officially. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "We have received a transmission from an intelligent civilization beyond our solar system. The message indicates distress. They are asking for our help." The world went silent for a few seconds, and then the noise of disbelief and wonder filled every home. Scientists quickly confirmed the signal's authenticity. It wasn't random, it wasn't natural, and it wasn't man-made. The source was moving with the orbit of a planet, not a spacecraft. The energy readings matched something that only a technologically advanced species could produce. For many, it was a dream come true. For others, it was a nightmare. Religious groups called it a sign from the heavens. Conspiracy theorists said it was a trap, maybe a trick by another human faction or even an AI gone rogue. Some military officials warned against responding at all. They said humanity might be walking into danger. What if this cry for help was bait? What if the aliens were pretending to be weak so they could find Earth and attack it later? But the message didn't sound like that. Even after translation, there was something deeply emotional about it. The tone, the rhythm, it carried sadness, exhaustion, and something humans understood immediately: fear. The aliens were scared. Over the next few weeks, the signal kept coming. Every 16 hours, a new version arrived with updated coordinates and more details. The images that accompanied the transmissions were heartbreaking. They showed a blue-green planet surrounded by twin suns, its surface cracked with fire and dust storms. The atmosphere was thinning, the oceans shrinking, and the skies darkened with ash. Among the ruins stood creatures that looked almost ghostly, tall, slender beings with luminous skin and deep, sorrowful eyes. They held strange devices raised toward the stars, as if begging for someone to notice them. The emotional weight of those images broke through human suspicion. Across the planet, people began to talk about compassion, not danger. Children drew pictures of the aliens holding hands with humans. Musicians composed songs inspired by the signal. For the first time in centuries, the human race seemed united not by war or fear, but by empathy. Still, not everyone agreed. Inside the United Earth Council, fierce debates erupted. Some nations wanted to send a small research vessel first, to study the situation before committing any resources. Others, led by Commander Nathan Cole of the Earth Defense Fleet, argued that hesitation would mean death for whoever was out there. "If we wait," he said during one historic broadcast, "we will be no better than the civilizations that once ignored our own cries for help. This is our chance to prove that humanity has evolved, not just in technology but in heart." The public loved his words. Across Earth, Mars, and the orbital colonies, his speech went viral. People started campaigns online, "Answer the Call," "Help the Dying Stars," and "We Are Their Hope." Billions of digital signatures poured into petitions demanding action. Humanity, it seemed, had already decided. Meanwhile, in secret, scientists continued analyzing the alien data. They discovered that the message was centuries old. The signal had been traveling through space for nearly 70 years before reaching Earth. That meant the situation on their planet might already be worse, or even hopeless. This discovery broke the hearts of many, but it also made the mission feel even more urgent. They weren't just responding to a call. They were racing against time itself. Inside a cold steel meeting room orbiting above Earth, the Council finally voted. The decision came after 27 hours of debate, during which humanity's brightest minds argued about risks, logistics, and morality. When the final vote was tallied, the room fell silent. Then Dr. Rios stood and spoke the words that would be remembered for generations. "The United Earth Council votes yes. We will respond. We will help." The room erupted in applause. Across every city and colony, people cheered. Fireworks burst over Earth's megacities. For the first time in centuries, all nations stood together for one cause that was bigger than borders, politics, or profit. The next morning, the news was everywhere. Humanity answers the stars. Plans were set in motion to prepare a massive rescue fleet, thousands of ships carrying engineers, doctors, scientists, and volunteers. The mission was not military, it was humanitarian. The fleet's name was chosen by a child during a worldwide contest, the Sol Relief Fleet. While preparations began, Amina Patel, the young technician who first spotted the signal, became a global symbol of hope. Reporters followed her everywhere. But despite the attention, she remained humble. In one interview, she said softly, "I didn't discover aliens. I just listened. They were calling and we finally heard them." As the days turned into weeks, the transmissions began to weaken. The aliens' voices sounded more distant, more fragile, as if their world was slipping away. Sometimes the messages broke apart mid-sentence, but humans kept listening, refusing to give up. They broadcast replies, sending promises and reassurances across the light years. "Hold on," they said. "We are coming." On the night before launch, the skies above Earth were filled with ships preparing to leave orbit. People stood on rooftops and beaches, watching the trails of light rise into the darkness. Children waved flags. Parents held each other tightly. Everyone knew this mission might take decades, that most who left would never return, but no one doubted its purpose. Humanity, for the first time in history, was not acting out of fear or ambition. They were acting out of kindness. They had heard the voice of another world in pain, and instead of turning away, they reached out. Far beyond the stars, that voice was still whispering, growing fainter with every passing day. The message continued its endless loop through the void. "We are dying. Please help us. You are our only hope." And for the first time, the universe had its answer. The message from the stars had already shaken the entire world, but when the time came to decide what to do, humanity found itself standing at the edge of the greatest choice in history. The aliens' plea for help had touched billions of hearts, yet it had also awakened old fears. For months, every government, scientist, and philosopher argued over one question that had no simple answer. Should humanity respond or stay silent? The United Earth Council, formed years earlier to keep peace between Earth and its colonies, became the center of the storm. Their headquarters, a massive glass structure floating above the Pacific Ocean, turned into a battlefield of words. Inside the great circular hall, hundreds of delegates took turns speaking while millions of citizens watched the debates live through their holo screens. The first speaker was Admiral Kieran Holt, head of planetary defense. He was a stern man with a deep voice and a lifetime of war experience. "We cannot afford to be naive," he said firmly. "This signal could be a trap. We know nothing about these beings, their motives, their weapons, or their technology. If we send ships into their space, we might be walking straight into our own destruction." His words spread fear through the room. Some nodded. Others whispered. Then Dr. Helena Rios, the same woman who had first announced the alien contact, stood to respond. Her voice was calm but filled with conviction. "We have faced war, famine, and extinction before. Yet we survived because of our humanity, not our fear. If this message is real and all evidence says it is, then they are not enemies. They are victims. They are what we once were, desperate and alone." The hall erupted in arguments. Some delegates shouted that Earth had its own problems: climate recovery, poverty, and conflicts on Mars. Others claimed that helping another species would unite humanity like never before. The debate continued for hours and then for days. Across the colonies, people chose sides. The defenders wanted to ignore the call and focus on Earth's safety. The helpers believed that ignoring it would mean losing their soul as a species. Meanwhile, ordinary people took to the streets. In New Mumbai, crowds of young people marched with banners that read, "If we can save them, we must." In Paris, an old war veteran cried on camera and said, "We used to fight each other over nothing. Maybe this time we can fight for something that matters." Churches, mosques, temples, and even space stations held vigils. People prayed for the unknown beings under dying suns, hoping someone would pray for humanity in return if the roles were reversed. Scientists from all over the world formed an emergency coalition called the Response Initiative. Their labs stayed lit through the night as they analyzed the alien data, building models of their language and environment. One breakthrough came when they discovered images hidden within the signal's layers, tiny holograms of alien cities collapsing under storms. These images showed alien children and families, their homes breaking apart, their skies dark and full of fire. The pictures were painful to watch. They changed everything. Even those who doubted the aliens' honesty found it hard to look at the faces of those beings and feel nothing. The fear began to fade. Empathy grew stronger. A few weeks later, Dr. Rios addressed the world again. Her speech was simple yet unforgettable. "When our ancestors looked at the stars," she said, "they dreamed of meeting others. Now that we finally have, we face a test not of power but of compassion. If we turn away now, the stars will remember us as the species that could have helped, but chose not to." Her words spread faster than any law or order could. People from every background, every planet started donating, volunteering, and even writing letters addressed to the aliens. But not everyone was convinced. In the deep military bunkers beneath the Arctic, secret meetings continued. Some high-ranking officials wanted to prepare weapons instead of aid. "If we send a fleet," one general warned, "it must be armed. Hope is not a strategy." They feared that a civilization advanced enough to send such a message might also be capable of deception. The tension grew. News channels reported nonstop about the Great Decision. Even children discussed it in schools. On Mars, where people had learned the hard way how fragile life could be, the support for helping the aliens was overwhelming. "We were once the ones who needed Earth's help," said a Martian miner during an interview. "Now it's our turn to be the helpers." At last, after nearly 2 months of endless meetings, the United Earth Council gathered for a final vote. The hall was silent as each representative placed their vote into a shimmering glass sphere. Billions of people waited for the result. Outside on the ocean's surface, thousands of ships flashed their lights in silent unity. When the final tally appeared on the central screen, the numbers glowed bright blue. Yes, 82%. The crowd inside the hall stood and applauded. Across every colony, people cried, cheered, and hugged strangers. Humanity had made its choice. They would answer the call. The announcement came the next day. "The United Earth Council has decided to send aid to the Epsilon Arginus system," Dr. Rios declared. "Our mission is simple: to help, to heal, and to learn." The name of the operation was revealed: the Sol Relief Fleet. It would be the largest and most ambitious expedition in human history. The mission's goal was not conquest, but compassion. Thousands of ships from Earth, Mars, and Luna Base would join together. Some would carry food and medicine. Others would transport engineers, scientists, and translators. There would be rescue ships, habitat builders, and even schools for alien children in case any could be saved. Commander Nathan Cole was chosen to lead the fleet. He was a hero of the Mars Rebellion, known for his courage and calm nature. During his first public speech, he said, "We are not going as soldiers. We are going as neighbors. The distance between stars is great, but kindness travels faster than light." His words became a global slogan. Preparation began immediately. The largest shipyards in orbit buzzed with activity. Factories produced new warp drives capable of faster-than-light travel. Engineers worked around the clock to modify ships for unknown environments. Artists painted the fleet's logo, a blue and white star surrounded by two hands, on every vessel. In schools, children learned about the mission. They collected drawings, letters, and small objects to send as gifts to the aliens. "So they know we care," one child said during a news interview holding a handmade toy rocket. Across space, hope had become humanity's newest export, but behind all the excitement there was fear too. Scientists warned that the distance was enormous. Even with advanced engines, the journey would take years. The aliens might not survive that long. Some whispered that they might already be gone. Others feared what might happen if the fleet reached a planet full of dangers no human had ever faced. Still, the world pressed forward. For once, people were willing to risk everything for something greater than themselves. As the launch date grew closer, millions volunteered to join the mission, but only a fraction could go. Doctors, linguists, engineers, and soldiers went through strict training. They learned alien biology theories, new emergency systems, and mental preparation for first contact. The fleet became a symbol of unity, Earth's first interstellar rescue effort, representing not a single nation but all of humanity. A few nights before departure, the sky above Earth was filled with light from the massive ships assembling in orbit. From the ground, they looked like glowing stars forming a new constellation. People stood in silence, watching. Some whispered prayers. Others simply smiled. For the first time in human history, the idea of us no longer stopped at Earth's edge. Amina Patel, the young technician who had discovered the signal months ago, was among those invited to witness the launch from the lunar colony. She had become a quiet legend. As she watched the giant fleet preparing to leave, she whispered to herself, "They called for help and we answered. That's who we are." On launch day, every screen on every world lit up. The Sol Relief Fleet stood ready, 1,000 silver ships gleaming against the black sky. Commander Cole's final message echoed through space. "To whoever sent the signal, hold on. Humanity is coming." Then, one by one, the ships ignited their engines. The sight was breathtaking, rivers of light stretching into the stars. Back on Earth, silence fell. People listened to the hum of distant thunder as the ships vanished into the void. They didn't know what awaited them, friendship, danger, or nothing at all, but it didn't matter. For once, humanity had chosen empathy over fear. The night sky seemed different after that. When people looked up, they didn't just see stars. They saw a promise shining across the darkness. The universe no longer felt like an empty place. It felt alive, waiting, and connected by something more powerful than technology, the simple, unstoppable will to help. The Sol Relief Fleet left Earth like a river of shining stars flowing into the darkness. More than 1,000 ships, each one carrying people, machines, and dreams, moved together toward the unknown. Their destination was Epsilon Argynnis, a distant star system 70 light-years away. The mission was clear. Reach the alien world. Find whoever sent the distress call and help them survive. But no one knew what awaited them on the other side. The journey itself was a story. Even with the fastest warp drives ever built, it would take almost 8 years to reach the dying planet. That meant 8 years of living in deep space, away from families, sunlight, and the familiar blue glow of Earth. The fleet was a moving city made of metal and courage. Inside those ships were thousands of people, scientists, engineers, doctors, soldiers, and volunteers, each carrying hope and fear in equal measure. Commander Nathan Cole watched the stars from the bridge of the flagship Aurora. He had spent his life in space, but never like this. Leading the largest rescue mission in human history weighed heavily on his mind. Some nights he couldn't sleep. He would look out at the endless darkness and whisper to himself, We're really doing this. We're going to help them. In the early months, the fleet was full of energy. The crew trained, studied alien languages, and tested the new technology. Artificial gravity kept them healthy, and hydroponic farms grew food in greenhouses glowing with soft blue light. Every week, ships connected through holographic meetings, sharing progress and keeping spirits high. People told stories, played music, and celebrated small events, birthdays, anniversaries, even weddings. They wanted to remember that they were still human, even in the cold silence of space. But space travel was not easy. As time passed, the excitement slowly turned into exhaustion. Long months of silence stretched between stars. Outside the windows, there was nothing but blackness and distant points of light. Some crew members started dreaming of Earth, the smell of rain, the sound of the sea, the warmth of sunlight on their faces. Space had no smell, no sound, no warmth. It was beautiful but lonely. Then came the first problem. In the 5th month of travel, a solar flare from a nearby star struck part of the fleet. Several ships lost communication and power. For 2 terrifying days, the Aurora tried to re-establish contact. The silence felt endless. Finally, when the storm passed, the lost ships reappeared, damaged but alive. The fleet cheered when the first message came through. "We're still here." That small victory brought back hope. After that, the crew began to treat each other like family. They shared meals, helped one another with repairs, and told jokes to lighten the long nights. A young medic named Alara became known for her singing voice. She sang old Earth songs in the mess hall, and even the toughest engineers would stop to listen. Her favorite song was called "Stars Remember Us." It became the unofficial anthem of the mission. 16 months into the journey, the fleet started receiving updates from the alien signal again. The transmissions were weak and broken, but still there. The aliens were alive, barely. The messages showed their world crumbling faster than before. Their skies had turned orange with dust. Their oceans nearly vanished. The aliens, tall, luminous beings with soft silver skin, were seen gathering around massive machines that looked like ancient towers. The scientists believed those towers were energy collectors, their last attempt to keep the planet alive. The crew watched the images in silence. Some wept. Others clenched their fists, feeling helpless. Commander Cole spoke softly. "They're still fighting to survive. We have to make it in time." To speed up the journey, the engineers decided to attempt a new type of warp jump, a chain jump, linking all the ships through shared power grids. It was dangerous. One mistake could destroy the entire fleet, but they had no choice. The aliens didn't have years left. They might not even have months. The first chain jump was terrifying. The ships aligned perfectly in a vast formation, engines glowing blue like stars being born. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Initiate warp. For a moment, space itself seemed to twist. Every ship shuddered as light bent around them. Then everything went silent. When the fleet reappeared, they had traveled 5 light years in seconds. Cheers erupted through the communication channels. Humanity had just made the fastest journey in its history, but the celebration didn't last. The jumps took a heavy toll on both machines and people. Some ships lost navigation systems, others suffered radiation leaks. Crew members began falling sick due to exposure from untested warp particles. The medical bays filled quickly. Ilara worked tirelessly, her hands shaking from exhaustion. "We can't slow down," she whispered to another medic. "They're waiting for us." In the following years, the fleet faced more challenges: meteor storms, equipment failures, and even a mysterious illness that spread through the hydroponic farms, killing most of the plants. Food became scarce. To survive, they rationed supplies and recycled everything possible. People grew thinner, quieter, but their eyes stayed bright with purpose. Commander Cole often recorded video logs to send back to Earth, though they would take years to arrive. "We are holding together," he said in one message. "We are learning what it truly means to care. This journey is not just for them, it's for us. It's showing us who we really are." 2 years later, the fleet passed through a region of space filled with colorful nebula clouds. The sight was breathtaking, waves of blue and purple gas glowing like oceans of light. For a moment, the whole fleet stopped to watch. It was the first beauty they had seen in years. One pilot whispered, "Maybe the universe is telling us we're not alone." That night, every ship dimmed its lights in respect, letting the stars shine brighter. As they moved closer to Epsilon Argynnis, the alien signals began to weaken. The once clear transmissions were now broken and fading. Only fragments of sound came through, a word here, a whisper there. Cold, light, ending. The linguists tried to decode it, but the meaning was heartbreaking. The aliens were running out of time. To stay motivated, the fleet's psychologist, Dr. Mara Jin, started recording daily messages of encouragement. She told the crew stories from Earth's past, how humans had survived plagues, wars, and disasters. We have always helped one another, she reminded them. Now we are helping someone else, someone we've never met. That's what makes us human. Her messages became a ritual before every sleep cycle. After 5 long years, the fleet finally detected the first signs of their destination. A faint glow ahead, the dying twin suns of Epsilon Argynnis. The stars looked dim, flickering like candles almost out of flame. The sensors showed large amounts of debris and radiation near the system. Whatever disaster the aliens were facing had torn their world apart. Excitement mixed with fear. This is it, Commander Cole said over the main channel. Prepare for system entry. Engineers rushed to reinforce the shields, pilots ran simulations, and medics prepared for possible injuries. The next few months would decide everything. As they approached, the fleet received one last clear message from the aliens. It was short, trembling with static. We see your light. We see you coming. Thank you. Then the signal went silent forever. No one spoke for a long time. In every ship, people just stared at their screens, tears in their eyes. After years of travel, sacrifice, and struggle, they had been seen. The beings they had set out to save knew they were coming. The journey had changed them all. Many who had joined for adventure found themselves humbled. Those who had doubted the mission now believed deeply in it. They had faced death, hunger, and despair, and yet hope had survived. As the fleet entered the final stage of their journey, they looked out at the dying suns and the small, fading world ahead. It was beautiful and broken, glowing faintly in the darkness like a candle fighting against the wind. Commander Cole stood at the observation deck of the Aurora and whispered, "Hold on, we're almost there." The stars outside shimmered like they were listening, and so, after 8 years of traveling through the cold emptiness of space, the Sol Relief Fleet moved as one, thousands of ships filled with the best of humanity, toward a world they had never seen, to help lives they had never known, guided only by compassion and the belief that kindness could cross even the endless distance between stars. When the Sol Relief Fleet finally arrived at the Epsilon Argynnis system, silence filled every ship. After 8 long years in space, the crew was exhausted but filled with nervous energy. They had dreamed about this moment for years, seeing the world that had called for help. But nothing could have prepared them for what they saw. Outside the viewing decks, the twin suns hung low in the black sky. They were dying stars, dim and unstable, their light flickering like dying candles. Streams of red and orange plasma curved across space, painting everything in fiery colors. Between those two suns floated a broken planet. It was once blue and green, maybe even beautiful, but now it was cracked, scarred, and gasping for life. Massive clouds of smoke and dust covered most of the surface, and lightning flashed constantly in its poisoned atmosphere. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the flagship Aurora, speechless. The room was filled with quiet gasps and whispers. Dr. Rios, watching beside him, finally broke the silence. "We're too late," she said softly. But then the sensors detected movement. Small energy readings appeared across the surface, faint, scattered, but alive. The aliens were still there. "Set course for the main energy cluster," Commander Cole ordered. Engines flared, and the fleet began descending slowly into the planet's orbit. The sight was both amazing and heartbreaking. Huge alien cities lay in ruins, their towers bent and half buried in sand. What was once an ocean was now a vast desert with cracks like veins spreading for miles. The atmosphere shimmered with unstable gases, making the sky look like liquid fire. When the ships broke through the clouds, the first close images came in. The alien beings, tall, thin creatures with glowing skin and long, graceful limbs, were gathered in small groups near the ruins. They looked fragile, almost translucent, their lights dimming. Many were weak, some too tired to move. Yet when they saw the human ships arriving, something bright sparked in their eyes. They raised their arms toward the sky. The communication officers immediately tried to send a signal of peace. "This is Commander Nathan Cole of the Sol Relief Fleet," the message said. "We have come in peace. "We are here to help." For a moment there was no response. Then a soft sound filled the speakers, a voice, trembling but clear. "You came," it said in the alien language that had taken years to decode. "You heard us." Inside the Aurora, every crew member fell silent. Many of them had dreamed of hearing those words. Some started crying quietly. After so many years, the message that had begun this journey had finally been answered. The first landing team prepared immediately. Scientists, doctors, and engineers suited up in protective gear and boarded the landing shuttles. The air on the planet was thin and toxic, so they carried oxygen tanks and radiation shields. As the shuttle touched down, dust storms roared around them. The ground trembled slightly and small pieces of glowing debris floated in the wind. When the doors opened, the humans stepped out into another world for the first time. The ground was black and cracked and the air shimmered with heat. But through the haze, the aliens appeared, hundreds of them standing in silence, watching. Their large, deep eyes reflected the shuttle's lights like mirrors. Dr. Helena Rios was the first to step forward. She took off her helmet's outer shield so they could see her face. Slowly, she raised her hand and smiled. "We're here to help," she said softly. The aliens responded with a gesture of their own, a slow bow, their luminous heads lowering. One of them stepped forward wearing a thin silver robe. His light was dim, flickering like a dying flame. Through the translators, he said, "We did not believe you would come." Dr. Rios's voice shook slightly. "We almost didn't," she admitted. "But we're here now." That moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in history. The humans and aliens, later identified as the Narellans, met face to face under the dim light of collapsing suns. Over the next few weeks, the fleet worked non-stop. Massive cargo ships landed supplies, food, medicine, air purifiers, and solar shields to block the radiation. Engineers set up giant shelters, converting wrecked alien structures into hospitals. Human doctors struggled to understand Narellan biology, but with the help of alien scientists who still survived, they found ways to heal their fragile bodies. Communication was difficult at first. The Narellan language was complex and emotional, full of light-based expressions rather than words. But slowly they learned to speak in ways both sides could understand. When the Narellans spoke, their skin glowed brighter. When they were sad, the light faded. Humans began to use lights on their suits to mimic this pattern, and soon, conversations turned into beautiful exchanges of sound and color. During one of the missions, Elara, the medic who was famous for her singing voice, entered a small ruined house where a group of Narellan children were hiding. They were weak and afraid. Instead of speaking, she started to sing softly through her helmet's speaker. The melody echoed through the broken walls. The children looked up, their eyes glowing faintly. One of them smiled. It was the first time any human had seen a Narellan smile. As days passed, humans learned more about what had happened to the planet. Long ago, the Narellans had been an advanced race with technology far beyond Earth's. They had the power to control their suns and harvest energy from stars. But their greed and pride led them to make a terrible mistake. They ignored warnings from another civilization that had once asked for help. They chose to stay silent, believing themselves superior. Now, centuries later, the same fate had come for them. Their suns had become unstable, and the energy towers they built to control them had failed. When Commander Cole learned this, he was silent for a long time. "So they're paying for the same mistake we could have made," he said quietly. "They turned away once, but we didn't." The Narellans were ashamed of their past, but also deeply grateful. One of their elders told Dr. Rios, "We thought compassion was weakness, but now we see it is strength. You are what we hoped to become." While the rescue continued, the planet grew more unstable. The twin suns were collapsing faster than expected. Giant waves of heat swept across the surface, destroying everything in their path. The fleet began evacuating as many Narellans as possible. Huge transport ships lifted thousands of them into orbit. Each takeoff was both a victory and a heartbreak. Every soul saved meant thousands left behind. The humans worked day and night, refusing to rest. Some stayed behind on the surface until the last moment to help load more survivors. In one desperate mission, Elara and her team rescued a group of alien children trapped in a collapsing shelter. When they finally reached orbit, her suit's oxygen was almost gone. As she removed her helmet, she whispered, "We got them all." Then she smiled weakly and fainted. Despite the danger, the fleet managed to save millions of Narellans. But there were too many. The planet itself was doomed. From orbit, it looked like a burning gem slowly breaking apart. When the final day came, the remaining ships hovered above, watching as the world that had once cried for help was swallowed by its dying suns. Inside the Aurora, silence filled the command room. Commander Cole looked at the screen showing the destruction. "We did all we could," Dr. Rios said softly. "We couldn't save the world, but we saved lives," Cole nodded slowly. "That's what matters." As the planet crumbled, a strange phenomenon occurred. The collapsing suns released a massive burst of energy that spread across the system, a final light, blinding but beautiful. It shimmered through space like a wave of gold passing over the fleet's ships. For a brief moment, the Narellans' bodies glowed brighter than ever before, as if their home spirit was saying goodbye. Many wept openly as the light faded into darkness. Afterward, the fleet turned away from the dying stars, carrying the rescued Narellans toward a new future. On the ships, humans and aliens sat side by side. They shared stories, songs, and quiet moments of grief. The Narellans began calling the humans the listeners, a name that meant those who hear the cries of others. One evening, as they left the system behind, Commander Cole recorded a message for Earth. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "We found them," he said. "We couldn't save their planet, but we saved their people. They were not monsters or threats. They were just like us, flawed, proud, and afraid to ask for help until it was too late. Let this be a lesson for all humanity. Compassion is not weakness, it's the strength that holds the stars together." The message took months to reach Earth, but when it did, the world listened in silence. People cried, prayed, and celebrated. For the first time in history, humanity had not only reached another world, it had saved one. The journey had changed everyone. The Narellans had lost their home, but they had found something they never expected: friendship, forgiveness, and a second chance. And the humans had found something even greater: proof that kindness could travel farther than light. As the fleet sailed away into the blackness, one of the Narellan elders looked through the viewing window at the fading stars and whispered in their gentle language, "You came for us when no one else would. Now you are part of our light." And far behind them, the two dying suns flickered one last time like a final heartbeat, before going silent forever. The Sol Relief Fleet drifted through the endless dark, leaving behind the dying light of Epsilon Arginus. Inside its 1,000 ships were the last survivors of the Narellan race, tall, luminous beings who had lost everything but life itself. The planet that had once been their home was now only dust and memory, but they were not alone anymore. Humanity had saved them, and that act would change the future of both species forever. The first months after leaving the destroyed system were full of silence. The humans and the Narellans were mourning together. The Narellans had lost their home, their history, their sky. The humans had lost the dream of saving an entire world. But slowly, life began to return inside the fleet. The sound of footsteps echoed through metallic corridors again, and the dull sadness started to soften. In the common areas, human doctors worked side by side with alien healers. The air shimmered with faint blue light from the Narellans' glowing bodies. Their light grew stronger each day, a sign of recovery and hope. Commander Nathan Cole spent many hours walking through the fleet, visiting both human and Narellan sections. Everywhere he went, people saluted him with quiet respect. To the Narellans, he was more than a commander. He was the man who had kept his promise. Some called him the bringer of light. But Cole didn't feel like a hero. He still saw the flashes of the dying planet every time he closed his eyes. Sometimes late at night, he stood alone by the observation window, staring at the stars and whispering, "We could only save some, but at least we saved some." The journey home took years. The fleet moved slowly, conserving energy and caring for the sick. Along the way, the Narellans began to teach the humans about their lost civilization. They shared maps of their ancient cities, holograms of art and music that shimmered like liquid color, and stories of how their ancestors once traveled between galaxies. The humans listened in awe, but the most surprising thing the Narellans shared was their regret. They admitted that long ago, another species had called to them for help, and they had turned away. "We thought we were strong," one elder said, his light dimming. "But we were only afraid. You came when we once refused to go. That is why you are better than we were." When the fleet finally reached human space, the welcome was unlike anything seen before. From Earth to Mars, from the lunar cities to the outer colonies, billions of people watched as the ships appeared in the night sky like a second constellation. Children cheered, holding flags showing a human hand holding a glowing star, the new symbol of unity. Across the world, church bells rang and people cried openly. Humanity had not only survived its greatest test, it had passed it with honor. The Narellans were given a new home on one of Earth's distant colonies, a world named Haven 9, a planet rich in oceans and light. There, humans built great floating cities where both races could live together. The Narellans began to plant luminous, trees that glowed softly at night, and their light became a symbol of hope for all species. In return, they shared their knowledge of clean energy and healing science, which changed human medicine forever. For the first time in history, two intelligent civilizations lived side by side, not as conquerors and conquered, but as friends. Schools taught both languages. Children grew up learning stories about both worlds. Humans learned to read emotions through the glow of Narellan skin, and Narellans learned to smile, a gesture they had never used before meeting humans. Years passed, and life moved forward. Commander Cole retired from service and lived quietly on Haven 9, near the ocean. He often walked by the shore where the water reflected the glowing trees. The Narellan children would run up to him, their small bodies shining with gentle light, and ask him to tell the story again, the story of the Great Rescue. He would smile, sit on a rock, and begin. "Once upon a time, a voice cried out from the stars," and every time he told it, the children listened with wide, glowing eyes, even though they already knew every word. Dr. Helena Rios continued her work with the Narellans, leading new projects in cultural exchange. In one of her speeches, she said, "The Great Rescue was not just about saving lives, it was about saving who we are. We proved that compassion is not limited by species, shape, or distance." Her words were later engraved on a monument built on Earth, a towering sculpture of two hands, one human, one Narellan, holding a single glowing sphere. The monument stood in the capital of the United Earth Council and was visited by millions every year. Ilara, the medic who had sung to the alien children, became a legend among both species. Her song, "Stars Remember Us," was recorded in hundreds of languages and played on every world. It was even broadcast into space in case someone somewhere might need to hear a voice of hope. When Ilara died many years later, the Narellans held a ceremony under their glowing trees. As her ashes were released into the wind, thousands of Narellans lit their bodies to full brightness, turning the night into day. One of them said softly, "She brought light to our darkness. We will never forget her." The Narellans adapted well to their new world, but they never forgot their past. Every year, on the anniversary of the planet's destruction, both humans and Narellans gathered by the sea to watch a special ceremony. They released glowing lanterns into the water, some blue, some silver, and let them drift away, representing the lives lost and the friendship gained. As the lights floated out to sea, they always repeated the same phrase, "We remember, and we will listen." Generations later, school children would study the Great Rescue in history classes. They would read about how humanity had faced the unknown not with weapons, but with open hands. The story became a legend, a reminder that courage was not just about fighting, but about caring. In time, the relationship between humans and Narellans changed the entire galaxy. Together, they built new colonies, explored new systems, and formed an alliance called the Concord of Light. It stood for peace, cooperation, and compassion. Whenever a world was in danger or a species in distress, the Concord would send fleets not for conquest but for rescue. The Sol Relief Fleet had become a symbol of hope across the stars. On the 100th anniversary of the first contact, a massive celebration was held on Earth. The skies were filled with ships, and the night was bright with fireworks and light patterns that mimicked the twin suns of Epsilon Argynnis. Holograms displayed old images from the mission, the first signal, the fleet leaving Earth and the moment of contact with the Nirellans. People cried and cheered. The descendants of both humans and Nirellans stood together on stage, their hands joined, their eyes glowing under the same light. In the final part of the ceremony, an old recording of Commander Cole's voice was played. It was taken from one of his last logs, recorded many years before his death. "The universe is full of darkness," he said, "but every act of kindness is a star. When enough of us choose compassion, we make a constellation that others can follow. Remember that." The crowd stood in silence as his voice faded, and above them, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. After the celebration, a new fleet was launched from Earth, larger, faster, and stronger than the original. Its mission was not war or exploration, but to continue what had begun a century earlier. Its name was the Aurora II, in honor of the original flagship. Painted across its hull were the words, "We hear you." As the ship lifted into the sky, millions watched and waved. Among them was a young Nirellan girl with silver blue skin and bright, curious eyes. She whispered softly, "That's what they said to us once." Her mother smiled and held her close. "Yes," she said, "and now it's our turn to say it to others." Far away beyond the colonies, the ship disappeared into the deep black of space. But this time humanity was not alone. The Nirellans were with them, standing as equals, carrying the legacy of mercy and light to whoever might need it next. And somewhere, in the endless night of the universe, other civilizations listened. Perhaps they too were waiting for help, afraid and unseen. But now they knew. Somewhere out there existed a species that listened when others cried for help. A species that crossed the stars not for power but for compassion. The story of the Great Rescue became more than history. It became a promise that no voice in the universe would ever be ignored again. Centuries later, as the twin sons of Epsilon Argynnis were nothing more than faint memories, the name of that mission still echoed in songs and prayers. It reminded all who heard it that even in the coldest corners of space, kindness could burn brighter than any star. And so, humanity and the Nirellans continued to travel together, lighting up the dark one world at a time, proving to the universe that when compassion leads the way, even the emptiest sky can become full of life and light once more.